Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bike Pack Adventures podcast. I am here today recording the intro for this episode I recorded a couple weeks ago with Meaghan Hackinen. Wearing a hat because I'm having a really bad hair day and I couldn't be bothered to go in the house and take care of that. And obviously I have to turn around backwards, otherwise the brim shades my whole face and then you can't really see me. So here we are. Yeah, so welcome back to the podcast. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you're enjoying summer. I hope you are getting out riding bikes and having some fun. I did get out for a ride a couple weeks ago with my buddy Carl. That was really, really fun. A couple weekends back. And we went for a little overnighter on a route we decided to call Owaro Calling. It was not a super big route. It was about 135 kilometers, but there was about 2,200 meters or so, 2,100 meters of climbing. And some of that was really rough. So it was like 4 service roads with chunky rocks and sand and all that stuff just to make life absolutely tough. Deer flies were awful. A couple of those hills were so big, you had no choice but to push up it like 33, 35%. I think I saw on my computer at the one point. Super steep. Anyways, super fun weekend. I really enjoyed it. We were out on our Panorama Taigas. I have the flat bar Taiga. He has the Taiga EXP drop bar mountain bike. We both have suspension, which helps a lot on a trip like this. And yeah, we were running our various bag setups. I was using Tailfin and he was using mostly Old Man Mountain. So with a couple custom made bags and frame bags by Kalad. And I think he had an Arkel top tube bag. Yeah. So that is what was going on for us. That was a really fun one. So check out Owaro Calling. It's on the website bikepackadventures.ca if you're interested in checking it out and going for a mountain bike adventure. What else is new? I still am not done building these new gravel bikes. Having a little issue with the conversion to SRAM, like to XDR for my DT Swiss rear wheel. It seems to be pinching the cassette, so I got to figure that out. I should figure that out today. And then my wife's bike, it needs new tubeless valve as well. And once that is done and it's holding air, we should be good to go. My wheel has just arrived in the store. I just got a message before sitting down to record this, so I have my rear wheel already. Just got to bring it home and install the tire, and that bike is ready. Just need to do a little bit of bike fitting after that. Yeah, so super stoked. The gravel bike is almost ready. I just want to fine tune it and stuff before I put on the bar tape and make sure I have the brake levers / shifter levers adjusted in the right position so that they're not interfering or I don't have to move them after, because obviously once you wrap your bars, it's a real pain and I don't really want to undo it. We are going on a trip. So this summer has been a really interesting summer in terms of we weren't sure what we were going to do. We had a couple options. One was a trip to Europe. One was potentially an RV trip across some part of Canada or Quebec or East Coast or whatever. That fell through for the moment. So we decided to go back to our original plan of going to Europe. And we're going to go spend about a week in London, England, which is kind of long, but we have some friends there we'd like to see. And yeah, it's going to be super fun. We have friends from Belgium who just happen to be in England at the same time. So we haven't seen them in years, since 2018. So this will be, man, that's a long time. That's 7 years. The kids are all grown up now and stuff. But anyways, yeah, we're going to meet up with them in London. An old buddy of mine from my Russia days in London, who's a British guy, who's now a teacher as well. And hang out with some of my wife's friends and that kind of thing. It should be really good. After that, we're going to take a train out of London. We're taking the folding bikes, but I'll get more on that later. We're going to take a train out of London to Canterbury, where we will start our bike trip. I don't know why I chose Canterbury. Just didn't really want to cycle in London. It's too big a city. And so I figured, one of the Eurovelo routes starts in Canterbury. It's like the Roman Pathways one or something like that. Anyways, we're going to start there. We're going to cycle to Dover, grab the ferry, and then kind of start heading north towards Rotterdam and The Hague, where we have more friends that live. And we're going to spend a bit of time there before kind of making our way back down towards Brussels and Lille in northern France, where we'll catch a train to Paris to spend a couple days there just doing touristy stuff before flying back to Canada. So the whole trip's about 3 weeks and 2 or 3 days, something like that. And yeah, it should be really fun. A little bit of mix of touristy, visiting friends, and biking. Now we're really trying to decide is, do we bring the Big Agnes Gold Camp 5 tent, because that is the biggest, that is the tent that we have that could fit 3 of us. Obviously it's bulky and it takes space. And then when we bring a tent, we got to bring air mattresses. Bring air mattresses, got to bring sleeping bags. Sleeping bags need food, got to cook. So stove. It all adds up, but I mean, when you compare it to staying in hotels and stuff, it just might be the right move. And obviously, we could check out warm showers and stuff still. So, I mean, this is all in the next week, and I will try to reach out to people and see what comes up. If you're a podcast listener and you are in Belgium or kind of southern Holland, after we leave The Hague and start kind of heading south, hit me up, and we would love to come freeload and share stories with you at your place. We are choosing the folding bikes so that we can jump off and onto trains and buses a little bit easier than the alternative. And Jasmine will be in her chariot. We're borrowing some stroller wheels because we only have a jogging wheel for it, and that way it'll kind of keep it a little bit smaller and a little bit more maneuverable as well. So that's that. Anyways, if you enjoy the podcast and, please share episodes. Always feel free to reach out with questions, comments, things like that you might want to talk about. And, 5-star reviews or 4 stars on Apple or Google or Spotify. They're really, really much appreciated. And obviously, lastly, if you're considering to become a supporter, you can do so by going to patreon.com/bikepackadventures. And that would really help because I screwed up this year. I meant to convert this Descript program I'm using to an educational program because I'm a teacher, and I forgot to cancel this one in time. And so it renewed for a year, and that's another something like $280 I was not budgeting for, which kind of sucks. Big time sucks. Because the educational one's like $5 a month. And unfortunately, now I'm stuck with this. And so lots of bills coming up with this script or with podcasting this year, of course, as always. And any support you guys lend me helps and goes a long, long ways. So much appreciated. Now, on to the podcast. In this episode, Meaghan Hackinen discusses her recent participation in the Hellenic Mountain Race, as well as her preparation for the upcoming Silk Road Mountain Race. She shares personal anecdotes and insights from these experiences, such as why she chose flat bars over drop bars for this particular event, the challenges she faced with weather conditions and gear malfunctions, and her strategies for handling sleep and fatigue during multi-day races. Meaghan also delves into the emotional and mental aspects of endurance racing, explaining how her background in sports like rugby, roller derby, and long-distance touring have helped shape her resilience and approach to ultra-endurance cycling. How you doing, though?
I'm good. Yeah. I had an itchy eye because I was giving Sadie all the cuddles because she's going to the groomer today and she's
Oh,
kind of scruffy, which is like my favorite side of her or my favorite phase. And when she gets groomed, she's like pretty shorn and doesn't look as like
not
goofy.
as
And
not as
it's good
cuddly, huh?
yeah, and it's good for her to get groomed because like it's hot here in the Okanagan,
Mm-hmm.
all the extra hair, like there's no reason for it, and it gets filled with burrs and stuff, but she looks way cuter when she's kind of
Yeah,
scruffy.
yeah. I just when we came back from Quebec City, I was like, oh, Indigo's really matted because she hadn't been brushed out since winter, like a good brushing. And I took her on the deck and I just gave her, and the piles of hair was unreal. And I swear she looks like she's 5 pounds lighter. So I mean, if only I could just cut my hair and look lighter, but whatever. How you doing though? How's things? How was the? I saw you did a pretty cool gravel ride recently.
Yeah, I went to the Fernie Gravel
Oh, that's a pretty
Grind.
nice.
It's a pretty cool event. I think there's like 500 people, and they've got a really high percentage of women.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of cool. Like, I think, yeah, last year it was like half and half. This year I think it was 40% women
Okay.
or something. So, and it's pretty cool. I've got a lot of friends in the Kootenays and Rockies in that area. It was a great weekend. Yeah, my dad came out. He got a new warbird because he liked my
Oh,
warbird so
nice.
much.
See, sponsorships work.
Yeah, yeah. So we both rode our warbirds, but the weather in the weekend was awesome. But the race day, it was like just rainy and muddy and really, really disgusting. Like really hard on the
Mm.
bikes.
No,
Because there was so much.
I saw your face. It was pretty awesome. Like that was an epic
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, yeah. Every time I went through one of the not checkpoints, but one of the aid stations, I asked the volunteers to clean my glasses for me, and I launched my water bottles like 5 minutes into the race because I'm not used to racing gravel, and I guess my water bottle holders weren't very
Oh,
tight,
fair
and I
enough.
wasn't using a hydration bag like on my back. So I launched my water bottles, and so I had to stop at every aid station and drink water.
Mm.
So I was kind of like, okay, well, you're not racing to win, Megan, and I'm not fast enough to win a gravel race anyways. So it gave me an excuse to stop and have something to
Yeah.
drink. And like I said, every time the volunteers cleaned my glasses for me, and it was amazing. Like I just had perfect vision for like 5 minutes, and then it was blurry.
How long is the race?
It was only 90K,
Okay.
but felt very long.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was saying I wanted to try to do more gravel races this year and stuff just for the heck of it, but it's also expensive to like, to travel and then camp and then race and all, it just adds up to it's just another cost of biking and it's pretty hefty as it is. Especially when you decide to build a
For
new
sure.
bike and you're like, oh, I'm going to just put the best of everything. And
I think that's one thing about Fernie that's cool is that it's like a whole weekend party.
oh,
So
nice.
at least you're not just coming for this short little race. There's stuff on the Friday night and then Saturday after the race, and then on Sunday there's a community ride. So
Mm.
it's at least you're traveling there to do like a few things, right? And you're not just gonna go race in the mud for 5 hours and go home. Or at least I hope people didn't do that. That doesn't sound like a lot of
Maybe if
fun.
they lived nearby, they would have, but who knows? Possibly.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess you can kind of start, like, just maybe reintroduce yourself to people that might not know who you are, but yeah, tell us about yourself and I guess how you got into endurance cycling.
I haven't been asked this question for
I
a
know, right?
while.
I thought it's time.
For sure. My name is Meaghan Hackinen, and I'm a writer and adventure cyclist. I live in Kelowna, BC, on the west coast of Canada. I got into endurance cycling because I didn't want to wait for the bus anymore. I was a university student and started using the bike to commute, and then kind of realized it would be a great way to travel longer distances than to school. So my sister and I planned a trip down the Pacific Coast to celebrate our graduation in 2009, and I've kind of been hooked ever since. I've done some big trips across Canada and down into Mexico. And in 2017, I started competing in ultra endurance um, bikepacking races, I guess, on road. And yeah, and then during the pandemic, I transitioned more to mixed surface
Oh, okay.
gravel adventures. And this year, I've gotten a little more mountain
Yeah,
bikey,
yeah.
but I have a suspension now, or what is it called? A suspension, a front suspension? What do you call the forks that go
I
boosh
guess, yeah,
boosh?
front suspension, or some people say like half squish. So I guess full squish is like front and back, and I don't know. I'm not really in the know of the lingo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I've got a half squish, and I also have a master's of fine arts in creative writing. So I write about my bike adventures and sometimes other things, but
Fair.
I think I have enough writing material from just the bike and the travel alone. I don't need to venture much farther. This year, I've signed up for the Mountain Race series organized by Nelson Trees, aka the Triple Nelson, and it's three international bikepacking events. Um, so, Atlas Mountain Race in Morocco in February, Hellenic Mountain Race in Greece in May, and I'm gearing up to go to Kyrgyzstan for the Silk Road Mountain Race, kind of biggest one in the series, in August. So that's
Awesome.
yeah, that's what I'm doing this year.
Nice. And then next year they're going to introduce one in Turkey too. I saw that, huh? There's going to be another forest
Or it
race.
sounds Very, very cool. Yeah, the people I've talked to who bikepack in Turkey, they've all said it's a really awesome route, and I feel like Nelson really does his research and groundwork. So I think he's been over
Mm.
there bikepacking a few times and kind of trying to figure out how to make a beautiful, challenging route in a place that doesn't have like a ton of bikepacking tourism yet, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, on that note, hey Megan, welcome back to the podcast.
thank you. Thank you. You know what I was doing yesterday? I was listening to the episode we did after I finished my log driver's waltz
Oh,
ITT.
okay. Yeah, that was a while. Feels like way back. It's like 3 years, isn't it? I
It
guess.
was, yeah, it was the first year of the Canadian Shield Bikepacking Summit, and some of the people in my like gravel cycling group chat were talking about doing the log drivers
Mm.
waltz, and I was like, oh, you should listen to this podcast I did. I talk about it. So then I had to listen to it because I was like, what did I even say on this
Yeah,
podcast?
yeah.
So, but your dog is like climbing all over you, Indigo, and
We're,
we keep
yeah.
laughing, but it doesn't make any sense because you don't actually see or hear the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah, yeah. I guess it was
So
two
yeah, it
years
was
ago because it was the third summit, so it was just like 2 years and a bit. So it's yeah,
okay.
it's gonna say yeah,
Cool.
but that's pretty wild. Um, so with the transition to these mountain style races, what do you do to prepare for this? Like as opposed to transcontinental race, or when you did the Ram, no, not Ram, Trans Am, right? So.
Trans Am, yeah. I've spent more time riding trails and just trying to get comfortable with bike handling. I think you can save some time if you're better at navigating through the trickier sections and don't have to get off your bike and push it so much. But a lot of it is really about just being safe and feeling confident. So I think the more you kind of prepare to meet the challenges that are more foreign to you, the more confident you're going to be
Mm.
going into it. Which goes a long way when you're like riding through the forest at night by yourself in a different country
Yeah,
in the
right.
rain.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
Uh,
Sorry, carry on. What was that?
oh, a lot of the training is the same. Like I use my indoor trainer to do a lot of my intervals, and I ride longer zone two rides outside. And then figuring out how to like configure the bike in the best way for the terrain.
Mm.
So like a road bike is a road bike, I maybe will add a feed sack to it or take a feed sack off depending on the distance. But I feel like I've changed my pack setup and I've moved to flat bars for the last race in Greece because there was so much
Hmm.
elevation, and now I'm taking them off to go to Kyrgyzstan. So I think, really thinking about like what the terrain demands of you and how you can modify your bike setup to match that as best possible.
Okay. And so with the experience of the Atlas in February, and now you had about 3 months to prepare for the Hellenic. Was there some big takeaways from that you know gave you an area to focus on?
The biggest one was my body. I was in a lot of pain during Atlas. I injured my shoulder in December. I just fell off my bike like while riding around Portland because I'm an idiot. And yeah, and it really like hurt all January. And I had different types of pains when I was racing. So I started seeing a physio, and she's been, yeah, kind of giving me things to work
Mm.
on, and it's really been helping. I think some of it was just time. I need some time to heal up properly, but I lost like a ton of upper body strength with the shoulder injury because I just couldn't do certain things. I couldn't raise my hand over my head. And now in July, I'm almost back to the same weights I was in December for like shoulder press and bench press and curl and things like that. Like it's been like 7 months, and like I said, I'm almost back to where I was in
Wow.
December. So
Okay.
it's been a pretty process. And, I think with road cycling, you don't need so much upper body strength. But when you're carrying your bike and there's a 30K hike a bike in Silk Road this year, you need to be confident to be able to have that weight on your back or on your side and moving your body in weird positions. So yeah, so we've been working on all sorts of
Hmm.
things, and it's been a, yeah, really satisfying process. I was almost pain free in Hellenic, and the pains that I did have, I think were just the regular pains that you're going to have for being on the bike
Yeah.
like 18 hours a day.
Yeah. I mean, you're
Nothing
you're gonna
severe.
have, yeah. There's gonna be wear and tear pains, but I guess it's like the whole thing is to delay the onset, right? By being strong enough and working out and taking care of your, the strength side of things, you just kind of delay that initial onset, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of
Mm.
it, I think, for sure.
So you mentioned handlebars. So on the Atlas and the Hellenic, you were using flat bars, and now you're going to go back to drop bars for the next race. Is that correct?
That's right. So I actually had drop bars for Atlas, flat bars for
Oh,
Hellenic,
okay.
and then going back to drop bars. I never really got the flat bars to a place that I liked
Mm.
them. I never really had a comfortable hand position. I bought those SQ Lab inner bar
Yeah, yeah.
ends, and I think those are amazing. They really helped me because it feels like a road biking position with your hand. But yeah, I think it just takes a lot of tweaking. Maybe my bars weren't right. Maybe I needed to try different sets of bars. Um, but I was in Europe for about a month before the race, so I had my bike set up, but it's difficult to make like big changes,
Mm-hmm.
like switching your bars out. I did some bike fit stuff with my coach. We tried some, changing where the brake levers were and raising the bars and lowering them. Um, and I felt more comfortable on them at the end of Hellenic just because, I used the bike so much over those 4 days, but I still don't really like riding flat bars. I kind of wanted to get like a salsa spearfish, the full suspension bike.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, I don't know if I want to ride flat bars again. And I could just not. I could have not just set like, I could have just set my bike up poorly, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
buying a mountain bike that comes with flat bars, like, the geometry is probably better than, just throwing flat bars on a bike that's not really made for them. Um, but I just don't really like them, and, they have helped, and they helped me navigate some really tricky terrain and gave me more control, but the rest of the time, when I'm just, like, pedaling along, I don't like them, so.
Fair enough. I think yeah, I think now with the growth of like drop bar mountain biking and stuff is not, the disadvantages are not so significant. It's not like you're downhill racing, right? So it's, in that sense of the word. So I think probably bike pack racing drop bars are fine, right?
Yeah, I think that like I have my flat bar set up and if I do another event, that is a bit more challenging. I might put it back on and I'd have to tweak it a bit. But I was kind of following the Trans-Balkan race this year, and it looks like a lot of people use flat bars for that,
Okay.
which probably speaks to the, nature of the terrain. So when I finished Hellenic, I was like, no more flat bar races. And then Trans-Balkan started, and I was like, oh, maybe next year.
Yeah. So are you planning the Trans Balkan next year, maybe, or
I have no
no
plans.
plans? Okay.
None. Absolutely none. Yeah, nothing past like Silk Road. I'm flying back into
Hmm.
Vancouver. I hope to visit some friends and family in the lower mainland, maybe the Sunshine Coast and Vancouver Island. My sister just moved to Port Alberni, and it looks like there's a cool new bikepacking route in that
Mm.
area. And I would love to visit some friends in Cranbrook in the early fall. And I don't really know. I think I'll be house sitting for my parents a bit. They like to fly south and go scuba diving. So
Nice.
yeah.
I just had
But
I
yeah, no, I
just
don't
had
have.
Nathan on the podcast. We actually are. I should have released it last night, but I didn't have pictures from him. I forgot to ask. So today, some point. Yeah.
Nathan's just like the best dude. He was cheering on a friend at Fernie Gravel Grind. We only saw each other briefly, but he brought me some water bottles from the Lost
Oh,
Elephant.
that's nice of him.
Yeah, yeah, and I saw him on the BC Epic. My dad and I did kind of a pop-up Trail Angel thing, and had Coke and coffee and fresh cherries for the
Oh,
riders.
that's nice.
So yeah, on the Epic, and I think he had a really good Epic ride. I'm not sure if you guys talked about that, but
We didn't. It
it
was.
was fun.
I think we recorded a few weeks back. Maybe it was before the epic or right around that time. I forget. Yeah. I don't think. I think it was just before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any unconventional setups or things you reconsidered last minute for Hellenic? Anything that you changed up? I guess the handlebars was one of them, but anything else?
I got the new stem pack from Apidura.
Is
It's like a
that the
feed
flat
sack,
kind of
except more.
looking one?
Yeah, I really like
Hmm?
it. I think the feed sack, because it's like a water bottle shape, it's just harder to get to stuff in the
Mm-hmm.
bottom. And if you're putting like a battery pack in there or like squarish items, like I sometimes put like, 8 granola bars or 10 granola bars like on the bottom. Like it kind of stacks things in better, and it's slightly larger than a feed sack. So I really like that. It was nice. I carried 2 feed sacks in Atlas and then just the one stem pack in Hellenic, and yeah, that worked quite well. Um, I didn't lose. I left my puffy jacket in a hotel room and didn't get it back in time for the race. And so I had to buy another one while I was in Switzerland. And Switzerland's kind of an expensive place to go on a shopping
Yeah.
spree. So I got like this puffy jacket from Decathlon, and it was kind of the cheapest one I could find. But it was really warm. It worked well, but it was just like a lot bigger. So it took up a lot more pack
Was that
space, which
more
was
for
kind
when
of
you were
annoying.
sleeping and like just for nighttime stops kind of thing? Or was it because you're high up in the hills, right? So it's quite mountains, I guess. So it could be quite cold.
Yeah, I just used it sleeping. There's a mandatory kit list, so you need to have a
Okay.
puffy jacket. So I was kind of fulfilling my obligation there, but I also wore it to sleep. Didn't bring a sleeping bag, so it was pretty essential when I was sleeping to be cozy.
Mm.
Um, and I kind of trusted that there would be enough shelters and places to kind of get out of the cold, and that I would have the strength to get down from, the higher peaks to sleep. And then of course you need, your emergency bivy and your puffy and your rain jacket in case you do get stuck someplace with the mechanical or injured and just can't, get to an ideal sleeping spot. But yeah, I think yeah, not bringing a sleeping bag, that was something I haven't done for a while, and using this piece of kit that I was just like, okay, like it works, but my puffy is way better, and I have it back for Silk Road, which is good.
Nice. And did you have an air mattress or no? It's just
No, I have a little like a micro pad that I made, and it's called Mati, and I lost it in forced prison on the first
okay.
night. A branch like hooked it, and a rider behind me picked it up and gave it to the media crew, and yeah, they watched over it for me and gave it back at the finish line because, you can't really support other
Yeah.
riders, right? So it would be kind of unfair to like give it back to me during the race. So it was definitely a little bit colder to sleep on the ground. I ended up sleeping on my rain jacket and my rain pants just to create some more
All right.
insulation. I slept outside 3 times, so I slept on the ground quite a bit. Definitely wished I had that mat, but I should have tethered it. It was just, under the straps on my seat post bag, and it's usually fine there, but it wasn't this
Mm.
time, and I'm pretty grateful to have it
It's
back.
just like a foam mat that's kind of cut down to yeah.
Yeah, I put it in my bear spray holder on Tour Divide, so that gives you a sense of how small it is.
Mm.
It's like very narrow. Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit taller than a bear spray canister and about as wide.
Oh, nice. Okay, sweet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I guess going into the race, what was the strategy? Like, how do you plan for that race? I mean, you've looked over the route, you've figured out approximately how many days it'll take you, or what's your thought process there?
Well, first I watched the movie Pilgrimage from last year's race, which was really cool to get a sense of what it's like to be there. It's a beautiful film.
I haven't seen
Um,
it.
and then I kind of dug into the fastest finishing times, the men's and the women's, and just to get an idea of what the terrain would be like. It's useful to know what people's moving averages are, and then kind of overall averages. And I think the women's winning moving average was like 9K an hour or something like that, which is a bit shocking to me.
You're like, what have I
So
got myself into?
I really geared myself up to pace, to pace it quite slowly, and I think that kind of mental preparation was really key because when the terrain was slow, when I was walking up and down staircases and had to like navigate, forced prison and just getting lost in the woods, I was like, oh right, this is all part of the adventure. Clearly everybody is walking their bike here, and you can only walk your bike so fast.
Mm,
Um, so that was a key thing. The mountain races, you get a pretty good map, like with the POIs marked, and kind of a cue sheet with towns and resupply where you might find hotels. There's stuff that exists that isn't on the cue sheet, so you're obviously encouraged to do a bit more research, but it gives you a pretty good like basis
okay.
going into it. So I studied that a bit, so I kind of had an idea of what the route was like. It starts in Meteora and does this loop through Pindus National Park, and it loops through a town called Matsova twice. So once about
Okay.
maybe 90K in, once, maybe like 200 and something K or 300 and something. So I kind of knew I'd be going through this bigger town twice, and thinking about like how I can use that for resupply. And the first time, you're not really stopping for very much because it's you're kind of hitting it in that first day. But the second time, I got a hotel there, so just kind of being able to, yeah, understand where the route goes.
Mm.
And even going through town the first time, I was kind of studying it, so that I'd know, where I could potentially stop for things the next time around. Yeah, and I definitely like, looked at the weather, and knew that it would probably be rainy. So I packed my good rain kit. Um, and yeah, there's some of the longer hike bikes are very clearly marked as points of interest, or, yeah, they're very clearly marked. So having those in my head, was really useful, because then I could kind of like tick off the challenges as I came to them. And again, not be surprised that I was like pushing my bike for 4 kilometers, up from some ancient stone bridge in a valley.
Do you make like a POI list, checkpoint list that you tape somewhere or do anything like that? Or is there when you're making your preps or preparing?
I didn't print anything out. I have it on my phone and like one of my saved photos, so I can like flip it open pretty quickly and check it out when I
Mm.
need to. Um, And one time I tried to use it as my phone screensaver, but I don't know, it just didn't seem to work very well for me. Somebody suggested
I
doing that. It sounds
Yeah,
like a good
that's what
idea,
I was
but
saying. I used to do is I put it as my background photo, so it's not a screensaver, but it'd just be the background one when you kind of open your phone.
mm,
But then there's like every message and thing covering it, or the random things like time and things. So it's sometimes it's not perfect.
yeah, I just found that a little annoying. I'm Can we pause it for a sec? My
Yeah,
window is open and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
like way too much yard
I'll,
work
I'll
going
delete it
on.
later.
Yeah, everybody's up doing like yard stuff right now. It was quiet earlier. It just gets stuffy in here with the windows
That was me
closed.
before we recorded. I was like, I better cut the grass. I'll have to do it later, and I got it done. Yeah, so I guess we were talking about some of the kind of challenging moments throughout the race. Did you say forced prison, or did I read that? I heard that wrong.
Forest
Forest
prison or
prison. What
forest
is that?
jail. It's like this stretch of forest that it really feels like you're being barred in,
Yeah.
right, by all of the trees, but the the trail and the track don't quite line up. So you're on like a gravel road, then all of a sudden you're on this trail, and then you're kind of like the trail ends and you don't really know where you're supposed to go.
Oh.
And so you have to discover where the trail is, but it doesn't really line up to the route on the map. And it's not that far off, but in a forest, if it's off even a little bit, it can be tricky. And I got there at night with there's like a few other riders around me, and I rode into the woods, and I just hear like men yelling in like frustration because they can't find the track. And I was like, oh yeah, here we are. And it was just like a bit of a ridiculous scene. It was raining and wet and probably like midnight or something. And you're kind of like going down one way and then realizing that you're veering towards the top of a ridge line or something. And you're like, oh, if it's to my left, I'm going to have to like scramble back down this thing. Like, am I really sure this is where the track is? Should I back up? And I was riding a bit with an American rider, and we were kind of like, just kind of trying to sort this
Lost
puzzle
together
out.
at the same time.
But we saw a gel wrapper from the nutrition sponsor that somebody had like dropped on the ground, and we're like, this is the trail. Somebody's dropped this nutrition wrapper, and so we like left the wrapper in situ so that other people could use it to help guide them along the correct path. Anyways, yeah, but that's where I lost my sleeping
Okay.
pad, and you could pop out of forest prison, you have some road, and then it's like this series of ancient stone bridges, and they're really cool, really beautiful, but they're super slippery. And to get to everyone, you go down a pretty big slope, and then there's usually some stairs, and then you go over a slippery old bridge that you can't see very well in the night, and then you climb back up out of these stairs and switchbacks. And there's like three or four of these, and then you get to like some little village. Um, and there was a mom and daughter that had a restaurant, and they just decided to like stay up all night serving riders and letting them sleep in the restaurant.
Oh,
I
sweet.
didn't actually stop there, but I thought it was so cool that they were like, oh, like all these like desperate, hungry cyclists are coming through. Like, I think people received some really warm
Mm.
hospitality there. I think the food and the coffee was great. But yeah, from that point, I just kind of powered on until I got to my end point for the night and fell asleep.
Yeah, makes sense. So speaking of sleeping, I guess, what was the strategy going into this event, and did you I mean, how did it work out without a pad?
The event started at 9 a.m., which is like my ideal start time because I'm a late riser.
Mm.
And Greek culture is really late night. People eat late, they're up
Mm.
late. So it would be kind of like difficult to have a 7 a.m. start when you're not going to eat dinner before like 10 p.m. So I was really glad that it started late so that you can kind of push later in the night. So really different than Atlas that started at 6
Yeah.
p.m. and you kind of did this long haul through the first night right away. So I plan to listen to my body and sleep minimally, so kind of 2 to 4 hours. I wasn't sure if I was going to sleep that first night. I wanted to just feel it out and see how it went. And I know from other events that are more technical, I use a lot of like mental
Hmm.
energy the terrain. So I figured I might just need to sleep because I was so tired and I get really unsafe when I'm tired. And I think, as you know, a lot of bike racing is kind of this like war of attrition and just kind of outlasting the other riders. So you don't want to take a silly mistake because you're tired and hurt
Hmm.
yourself and not be able to ride fast or not be able to ride at all. So I, yeah, just planned to listen to my body, sleep for 2 to 4 hours. I had my emergency bivy, I had my puffy jacket, and I needed to look for kind of sheltered areas to sleep. There are some like hotels and things on route, but it's mostly like little chapels that you can set up under an awning, or a closed restaurant, or places that are protected enough that they're a bit warmer. So the first night I got drowsy, maybe like 3 a.m. I spotted a little church and set up there and went to sleep. I usually try and stealth camp and not make myself super
Hmm.
obvious, but I didn't want any riders seeing this church and trying to sleep there because I don't like being interrupted. So I like put my bike out like very prominently in front of it to kind of signal like there's someone here. Please do not disturb.
Did that work?
um, no one bugged
Oh,
me, so that was good. And
perfect.
I'm sure other people came through because there's like 200 people. So yeah, so I had a pretty good sleep that first night. I bring like a pair of shorts to change into to kind of air myself
Yeah.
out, and my clothes were all wet from cycling in the day, so it was kind of gross in the morning getting back into wet clothes, but whatever. And then the timing didn't work out for me to sleep at any of the checkpoints, and all the checkpoints you could either sleep casually at or like there was accommodation, but yeah, the timing didn't work out for me. Um, the second night, I was in Metsovo and I was really wet that day and muddy and gross. So I got a hotel room and I actually stopped at
Is that
like
the town you
8
came
p.m.
back
because
through? Is that the? Yeah.
yeah. And there's quite a few hotels, and so I just stopped and stayed there because once you leave Metsovo, you're really going into this wild part of the route, and there's not much accommodation until you get to the second checkpoint. And there's a pretty big pass to get there, and some more hike a bike. So I wasn't sure I would be able to get to the second checkpoint like comfortably. Like I would, might be able to scramble in at 3 a.m. or something, but I was, yeah, like I said, I was wet and cold. My socks were wet. So I got a hotel room. The owner was a big fan of the bikepacking race, so the receptionists were watching the dots at the desk, and there was a hose outside to wash our bikes off with, all that kind of stuff. It was really, really cool. So it was nice to clean my bike. As you know, taking care of your bike is a pretty important part of the event too,
Hmm.
and take a shower, and just sleep in a bed. That was my longest sleep. I think it was 3.5 hours because I knew that being in a hotel bed, I would just get a better quality sleep than sleeping on the ground without a sleeping bag, without my mat even. So I planned to sleep a bit longer, and I still, was on the road at like 1 a.m. or something pretty early. And the next night I slept outside, didn't pick such a great spot, and was a bit cold and chilly. So I woke up after about an hour and a half and got back on the bike. Pretty uncomfortable day. I think the fatigue was just starting to hit me. I guess that would be like, kind of my fourth day on the bike or third day on the bike, but pretty far into the race at that point. And there's a ton of climbing. So it's like 900
Is it like
kilometers with
30,000 or something crazy?
just under 30,000, 28,000. So yeah, at that point, my legs were just feeling it. And I woke up and I was like, oh, great, my legs don't work anymore. And it was just like the easiest gear for every little slope. And I was not feeling it. But yeah, kept going. It was really great to get to the third checkpoint that day and get some, motivation from seeing the volunteers and chatting with the other riders. And then my last sleep, I found a nice little kind of a picnic shelter area that was really cozy.
Mm.
And I slept for like 2 hours. And it wasn't enough, and I had to nap a couple more times in the day. But yeah, I was pushing for a top 10 position at that point. I had a pretty good lead in the women's division, but I just figured, it's the last night. You should be able to get by with a bit less. And like I did, but like I said, I had to stop and nap a couple times, and I'm sure I was just like being a bit inefficient because I was fatigued. So in reflection, it might have been better to try and sleep a little bit longer
Right.
there. But yeah, I woke up hearing like the free hub of another cyclist passing me, and I was like, "Oh, gotta get on the bike, Megan, chase him down."
Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Oh, I made
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I made a pretty big error that final sleep because it was chillier and I didn't have my sleeping pad. So I was sleeping on my rain clothes and I left my rain jacket on the ground. And the inside is kind of this, I don't know, not dirt color, but it was like I was sleeping on cement. So it was kind of cement colored. And I like just didn't see the jacket when I was packing up my stuff and I was tired and I got back on the bike and yeah, so I left my rain jacket there, my like
Mm.
very nice like Sky Pilot one that I used for the divide, and I didn't realize it until I got stuck in an electrical storm right before the finish
Oh
line.
no.
So it was
So
scary
I was gonna
there.
ask about unexpected issues. I guess that sucks.
Yeah, and I think it's an example about like how things compound, right? Because if I didn't lose my mat, I wouldn't be using my rain jacket
Right.
as like an insulation layer, and I wouldn't have left it on the ground. So it's, yeah, just kind of a silly mistake that could have been avoided by being a little more careful in the
Mm.
first place. Yeah, there's one final pass before you get to the coast. It finishes in Nefpactos, and it's this cool old like Venetian port town on the Gulf of Corinth, and I'm sure there's a flatter way to get to it, but you go over like 1,000-meter climb up to these windmills, and it's a pretty challenging climb. It starts out in pavement. It's super super pitchy, and then you're kind of on this not quad road, but these little like service roads that aren't very wide and pretty bumpy trail and also quite steep. And it had been like so hot all day, but thunderstorms roll in the afternoon. It was maybe like 3 p.m. and all of a sudden I'm noticing the clouds building and I was like, oh shoot, we're definitely going to get some weather coming in. It's quite exposed. Aside from the windmills or power generators or whatever they are, there's not much up there. And so it started raining a little bit and the temperature's dropping and then it starts hailing and I was like, okay, I should probably stop and layer up. And then, hail, it goes from like a little bit of hail to like really intense hail in five
Hmm.
seconds. So I pulled over and I'm digging out, can't find my jacket. I'm like debating whether or not to like pull my bivy out and climb into it. And I actually did for a few minutes because it was just such gross weather and I wanted to kind of like, protect myself. So I put my rain pants on, I put my arm warmers on, I put my vest on, and I crawled into my bivy and tried to wait for the storm to pass. It looked like it was easing up, and I stuffed everything back into or stuffed the bivy back into my seat post bag and started pedaling. And then it just got like way worse
It
as
was
I was
like the
coming
eye
over the
of the
top.
storm, maybe.
I know, yeah. So I just felt like I was making a bad decision by continuing on, but I really didn't want to go back and like shelter under a bush. Like I was kind of hiding under an overhanging like shrub and it wasn't very good shelter either. And at this point I'm getting colder. I thought about like ripping holes in my bivy and kind of wearing it as a poncho down the mountain. But then I was like, well, then I don't have a a bivvy that can actually protect me if I need to like shelter in place. So yeah, so I got soaked on top, but I still wasn't really cold. I was just like thoroughly drenched.
Mm.
And you all of a sudden, you get to the top, you see the coast. I can like barely see it through the clouds and the mist, and it's just, pouring rain on me now. And the roads turn to mud, and it has these big, like, like streams of water, and it's just really, really awful and gross. Um, and I was like, if I get a mechanical here, like I just have to run down the mountain. Like I can't fix it. I can't do anything in this rain. It was really like, what's the word? It was just stressful, I
Yeah.
guess. So yeah, I rode down. I was fine. Glad I had that front suspension to just pound through things. And I got to the finish, and it was just raining a little bit, and I felt so ridiculous showing up without a rain jacket. Like I just felt like I'd really, yeah, I'd not done my due diligence to take care of myself, right? And because it was the finish line, there was no real consequences. Because it was a
Yeah.
town, even if it wasn't the finish line, I was rolling into a town, like, I can warm up, I can buy a new rain jacket there if the race had continued on. But, had it not been a town, had it just been like a valley or something like that, like, I guess I would have been okay because the temperatures were quite warm and you would, you'd dry out eventually. But yeah, it just felt kind of stupid. So I will definitely take better care of things. Going into Silk Road where it's very remote, you definitely don't want to lose a rain
Yeah.
jacket. That would be terrible. And I guess that's maybe one of the reasons why you have to carry like a sleeping setup, like a shelter and an emergency bivy. So I could theoretically destroy my emergency bivy and still be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. I feel like I lose stuff all the time too. So hey, you're not alone. Actually, you probably don't lose
Feel
stuff all
better.
the time. I literally, I don't know how I
Me too.
lose so much stuff.
I
I'm like,
lose them all the time.
but yeah, it's just budgeted into my life now. Um, was there any parts? I mean, with 30,000 or 28,000 meters of climbing, there must have been some phenomenal views, except when you're in an electrical storm. But were there any moments that were just complete magical or unforgettable?
Definitely. Yeah. I had some of that, like, ultra fatigue, beauty, just everything comes together at once and you just like tear up a bit. The morning after I stayed in the hotel in Metsovo, I started leaving really, really early. And I actually saw a bear leaving town, which was kind of like a symbol to me that I was like entering the wild here, like the backwoods of Greece. And you start in this pretty long climb, and I was just kind of chugging up by myself in the dark, and the temperature's dropping as you're getting higher and higher, and it's still before dawn. And I got to the top of the climb just kind of as the sky was brightening up, and I had to put my gloves on and my rain jacket because it was so chilly, so I couldn't take any photos because it was too much of a pain to remove my
Mm,
gloves and pull my camera out. And I have an old phone, so it just crashes when it's cold too, so I didn't want to risk that. And from the top, you kind of enter this like very wild, open landscape. There's I think like one or two old maybe farm shelters or like agricultural shelters, and the area is called Little Kyrgyzstan because the landscape apparently is quite like Kyrgyzstan. And there's just kind of you and the sunrise and these descending roads, and that was one of my highlights. It was a really cool place to end up on a bike. Not a soul around, no other riders, no people in the area, and it descends through this little like village. I forget what it was called, but I think it was like Silka or Sturka, or I don't remember. There's an S and maybe a K and an R in there. And the village is all made of like white stone. It's kind of
ooh.
this like different style than other villages in Greece. And everyone was still asleep. Again, I didn't see anyone. And the streets are super steep. So you're navigating through this like little village maze in the early hours of the day, and I'd warmed up at that point enough, and you're just looking on the hillside now of trees and forest. So that was a pretty cool experience. Um, the landscape was definitely more rugged than I think people imagine for
Okay.
Greece, and I think that was Nelson's intention in making the route was to kind of show this side of the country that not as many tourists get to see. When you think about the tourism in the northern mountains of Greece compared to like the beaches and the
Yeah, right.
archaeological sites, it's like a percentage. So it was super cool to get to see these places that were, not super inhabited. And I don't know if I saw any other bike packers. I saw some hikers in some of the areas where people, yeah, some had more hiking tourism. And then the other amazing like moment I had on top of a mountain was I guess kind of similar time of day, like sunrise on my last morning of the race. There's a kind of pointless loop that you do to gain a bunch of extra elevation. There's a community center there that was previously a resupply, but it was closed this year, so there was nothing on the map for resupply. So you're just doing this loop to gain more elevation. And when you get to the top, there's kind of the last view of the mountains before you descend and start to get closer to the sea. And I was like, quite fatigued and pedaling up, and also realizing this is my last morning in Greece. So I'm trying to soak, not in Greece, but on the race course. I was trying to soak everything up. So I was getting emotional about like the bee boxes. There's bee boxes everywhere, and from people farming honey, and the flowers. And for some reason, I was singing that song, "She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain," except I couldn't remember the words. So I was like, "I'll be coming up the mountain," and I finally got the right words maybe when I like got to the top, and then it reminded me of my mom because she always sings that song, and she definitely sang it when we were
Mm.
kids, but even now it's just one of the songs that she sings randomly at times. And then I was thinking about how much my mom and my family support me, and this like all these childhood memories are coming up and infiltrating my current memories, and I just started crying. And I had this awesome descent. It was just, yeah, really beautiful roads, fast. I had to pull over actually and change my rear brakes or my front brakes. I changed one earlier on in the race. The course just destroys brake pads, especially in the
Okay.
muddier conditions. So yeah, most people had to change their brake pads. I brought four
Oh,
sets,
wow.
two
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
pairs enough. And you don't want to DNF because you don't have brake pads. And it's
That
not
would suck.
like it's not like I've done other courses where my brakes haven't worked properly and it's been like, oh, it's fine. It's a little sketchy. Like it's just not possible on this course.
Mhm.
You need to have brake pads. Um, so yeah, so that experience, those 2 mornings are ones that really stuck with me. But yeah, there's so many amazing views, and just the sense of satisfaction of getting there to these places that not everyone gets to
Yeah.
see was so great.
And I mean, I had written down the question, was there a specific point where you thought I could win this? But I guess you also, very far into the event, I remember following along and you're like, I'm aiming for top 10, right? Like, so winning it as in the women's division is one thing, but then you were also kind of gunning for that top 10 finish. At what point did you kind of, realize you've bar any major mechanicals, you've got it in the bag, I guess, for the women's division, but then what helped you keep pushing, I guess? Mm-hmm.
I think that was around when I came into checkpoint 3. Yeah, I was maybe like 12th or something at that point, and the checkpoint is in a hotel lobby, this kind of beautiful old hotel in Melisorgi. One of the volunteers there I had met in Athens, and he owns a bikepacking bags company. So it was really cool to see this person again. And I felt great to be there, but I needed to take a longer
Okay.
stop because I was using Dynamo, and I love the Dynamo. I have a K-Lite, it works really well. But because the terrain was so steep and the descents were so fast, it wasn't charging my devices very well.
Mm,
And so I had to charge everything up before I headed out to the finish. And the final stretch to the finish is only 190K, but there's like 7,000 meters of climbing or something. That's almost an Everest.
Jesus.
Um, And there was no guarantee of resupply because the one that had been there was closed. And I did hear from other riders, they found a restaurant that wasn't on wasn't on our POIs. So, if I'd done my research, I might have known that that was there, but you really don't want to like rely on one
Yeah.
restaurant to do your charging. And I knew I couldn't rely on my dynamo at this point, especially with that much elevation coming up. So I was forced to take a bit of a longer break, but I think it really helped recharge me for that final stretch. So I got to, do a little resupply stop. I got some gyros and fries, and I just got to kick my feet up and relax a bit. So that was a time where I was able to check the tracker and kind of see where I was really in relation to the other dots
Mm.
to kind of to think about where I was in relation to the other women. And other times when I've been checking the tracker, like I'm on the go, right? I'm riding my bike and I'm looking at my phone. Like I'm not really comprehending stuff very well. I'm just kind of glancing, but having a little bit more time to think about it and formulate a plan, I think really helped me make that final push. I also came into the resupply the same time, almost the same time as another rider who had been leapfrogging a bit, and he actually DNF'd there. He was so
Oh no.
fatigued that he just like CP3 and didn't continue on. And like I just imagine such different takeaways. Like I get there and I'm like I have to recharge and I'm going to push and try and get top 10. And he's like I'm done. He could have pushed for a top 10, but instead he
Yeah.
DNF'd. Like and he was fine. There was nothing wrong with him. He was just really tired. I was like, why wouldn't I didn't say this because it's not my job to tell other racers how to race their
Yeah.
race, and he didn't ask. But I would have given him a pep talk and said, like, go get a hotel room and sleep for a few
Yeah.
hours and come back out and race to the finish. Like you would still be a top 20 rider probably, even if you slept for some time, right? And so he was like trying to sabotage me, I think. I was getting, I had to air everything out on my bike because it was damp because I had slept outside and you know what happens in those bivvies, everything like cooks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was air
Incubators.
puffy and incubators. So everything was like, yard sale on my bike. I'm packing it up. And he comes out and he's talking to me like, so Meaghan, what do you do for work? Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I can't have this conversation right now. I can't pack up my stuff and talk to you about my job. Like I do not want to think about the outside world.
Yeah.
And he, like just just distracting me. And so I'm not sure if it was conscious or not. I think that maybe he like, wanted someone else to hang out at the checkpoint with him. And I was like, I gotta go, man. Once my stuff was charged up enough, like I was on a mission. So that yeah. Anyways, at that point, I obviously moved up a spot because he quit. But I realized that I didn't have too many other riders ahead of me, and that we've kind of been in vicinity for some time. So when you're that close, if you make smart decisions, if you can pedal a little bit quicker, like
Hmm.
sometimes it makes a difference. Or you can cut sleep a little bit, or if someone has a mechanical and you don't. Um, at one point, I thought I had a flat. I had gotten one earlier the day before, and it was my suspension seat post, just like being a suspension seat post. And I was paranoid that I had a flat. I had to get off the bike and like poke the tire, but everything was fine.
Yeah. You just need to do like this little stand up, push the button, make sure it's all the way up because sometimes they sag just a little bit, and
Ah, okay, might have
I've
been
had
that,
that
but yeah,
happen.
no, it
But or
worked.
it's like I don't raise it enough when I've used it, and then I'm riding. I'm like, why does this feel so weird? And then I clue in
Mm.
that yeah. Um, yeah, I guess it's I can always imagine like at the as you approach the end of a race like that, and you're like, I want to pass one more person. I want that top 10 or two more people, whatever it might be. And as you reach that person, I wonder if they're aware also of what their positioning is, and they're like, oh fuck, like come on, like if they get that feeling, or if they're just depending, I guess, how beat you are, you're just like, oh, there goes somebody. Hey, what do you do for a living?
I definitely think about that too. And, sometimes if you know the rider, you know that they're watching the dots or their phone is on airplane mode, right?
Hmm.
Otherwise, yeah, you can just speculate, which is kind of fun too.
Nice. Let's talk a bit about mindset and mental game. What goes through your mind on a multi-day race like this, where you're meant to be solo, and you have chances to talk to people, but a lot of it is alone. And how do you just keep pushing yourself mentally?
Uh, I don't know what goes through my mind, man. A bit of everything. It's just kind of a hodgepodge. The first day, I'm pretty focused, and there was a recently retired pro rider from Australia, Rachel Nyland. So I was like really worried that she was going to crush me because, someone who has experience in the pro peloton, obviously they've got a good engine and
Hmm.
I've raced multi-day events before in a different format. So I was really kind of fixated on Rachel and thinking a lot about the other women and where I was in the pack. Um, and also quite focused on like thinking, okay, here I am. I'm gonna get a Coke when I get to Metsovo. I'm gonna, stay efficient, kind of mathing out how long my food was gonna last me, when I would have to do more food resupply, and just thinking about the pacing and stuff. Um, as the race goes on, and this was no different, I kind of start to lose focus a bit, and my mind just kind of jumps everywhere.
Hmm.
I at my best, I think I'm probably just like, enraptured by the scenery, really loving being in the mountains and where I am. And at my worst, I'm just like counting down the seconds until I get to the top of this hill. I listen to some podcasts, and I actually listen to like most of an audiobook, which is unusual. Usually I can't
Yeah.
focus on people talking. But because the climbing was so slow, I was able to just yeah, it was good for me to just hear a story as I was, you know, marching up a hill at like, 5 kilometers an hour or whatever. Um, yeah, and I love it when I have these flashbacks from, like, childhood or other bikepacking experiences, and maybe memories that have gotten, like, kinda lost in the storage unit, and being able to retrieve them because I have something in the landscape or my mood prompts them to come out is always a really, really cool experience. Um, yeah, and, it's not a long race, but everything is so slow, and like I said, knowing that from the beginning was really, really helpful so that when I was going slow, I wasn't, like, berating myself for, like, barely moving. It was easier to stay in a positive headspace just because I
Mm.
knew it was gonna be. And, I talked to other riders who were surprised by things, and they were not, like, happy surprised that there was, like, a 3.5 kilometer hike a bike or that they were
Right.
lost in forest. They were pissed off surprised, and I didn't have those moments. I think I anticipated, pretty much everything to an extent, except for this piece of blue pipe that I ate shit on because I thought I could bunny hop it and I didn't. So that
Is
one
that
was
that
a
picture where you're like falling down the hill?
yes. Yeah, you really captured that one. Um, yeah, and near the end, being able to really focus in on like, okay, top 10, Megan, top 10, keep
Hmm.
moving. That's kind of what went through my head again and again was that, um, you just have to keep moving. You're not gonna get there if you stay still, right? You're not gonna
Yeah,
get to the
yeah.
finish line. You're not gonna move up the ranks. So, yeah.
I find when I get like into my when I start daydreaming and like my head just starts to wander, all of a sudden my pace just drops. Like I find it really challenging to stay focused on pedaling stroke. I was actually thinking recently. I thought it kind of correlated to that really old dumb blonde joke about the headphones that say breathe in, breathe out. But to have it so it's just like pedal, pedal, pedal at like 90 RPM. So I put on my music and it's just some me saying pedal, pedal, pedal. I don't know because I really need something to like push me
Mm.
to focus, or maybe music that's like that running tempo music, 90 RPM or whatever it is, or 160 beats per minute or something like that, and just to always keep going. I don't know. Do you,
Yeah, yeah. I think music can definitely be a big booster. I listened to a playlist that was made by Mariah Moldenhauer,
oh,
and she won
yeah,
Atlas,
yeah.
and she was doing commentary on this race. So it was cool to connect with her in this interesting way and get to hear the music that she likes while she's watching my dot and commenting on the race. It's kind of neat.
That is kind of neat. And was it like just a Spotify playlist or something?
Yeah, it was a Spotify
I love
playlist.
it.
It was kind of like all over the place, so it was kind of fun that way. There was some kind of, really upbeat stuff. There was some silly older songs. There was some German music. Like it was,
99
it was,
Luftballons.
it was
That would make me
so
happy.
yeah, it was good to listen to. It did, yeah.
Um, I know I deal with self doubt. Do you get self doubt in these events, or is it kind of like you just kind of learned how to work your mind past that?
I think for me, it's the strongest feelings of self doubt come in the days leading up to the
Okay.
race, and um, it was really strong in Atlas because it was such an early season event,
Hmm.
and I was like dealing with shoulder injury and kind of feeling like I didn't know what I was getting into, and I didn't have the suspension fork on my bike, and like just I was a bit of a mess. Um, in Hellenic, I felt much more confident with my setup. I didn't love the flat bars, but I felt good on them, or I felt like, I felt comfortable in them. And I toured from Athens to the start, so that was kind of my chance to, yeah, to kind of like release all of those fears and just get more comfortable in the terrain. It was nice to tour, take things slower, but still do like, 100 plus K
Hmm.
days, which on pavement, pretty easy. But just sleeping outside, eating Greek food, like getting used to seeing an unfamiliar alphabet everywhere. That was a kind of a nice entry step for me. And then the night before the race, like I'm not sure if I should even tell you this story. I was so nervous. I was gonna have dinner. I wanted to have dinner with another Canadian guy who was riding, but he had gone off and had dinner by himself, so I was alone and I didn't like talk to anyone all evening and just kind of built up. And at 11 p.m. I wasn't sleeping, so I went to the grocery store next door, or the store, and I bought like a tall can of Alpha. So I came back to the hotel with my beer, and the receptionist was having a cigarette outside, and I was like, "Can I have a cigarette?" So I had a cigarette and a beer, and I was like, wow, this like Meaghan, you are very tense right now. And it maybe helped me unwind in a not very healthy way. But I went to bed after that. Um, but I was just like, here I am preparing to go into the woods, and I'm like, I just didn't have the coping
Yeah, yeah.
mechanism, like to get myself to a place where I felt like I could unwind. Like I was in my room, like literally like pacing circles around the bed, and I needed to get out. So yeah, and the receptionist was really lovely. I talked to her a bit about why there were so many bicycles in the reception, and what we're all up to, and maybe she gave me some
Oh,
confidence that
that's
I didn't have at that moment in time. And she kind of was, yeah, just talking about how brave we all were, and how she would never imagine going out into the mountains like that, even though she'd lived here her whole
yeah.
life. But um, I kind of yeah, yeah. So that maybe talking to her changed things as well, combined with the nicotine and alcohol.
I like it. Maybe this is a new pre-race strategy. People are like, hey, you want to go catch dinner? No, man, I'm good. I got my beer and cigarette waiting for me.
Uh,
As long as you keep winning. Uh, that's
but
so
yeah, when
funny.
I'm actually out on the course, like when I'm actually once I get on the bike and start
Hmm.
riding, like I usually like I just feel better. Like just being on the bike, it's a different headspace than when I'm
Yeah.
not on the bike. So, but of course you can't be on the bike the night before the race. Like you need to be unwinding or relaxing. So
Hmm.
it's like that's something I'm still working on. Maybe, maybe going into Silk Road, I will think a bit more about how I get the night before races and try and, make myself a game plan, what I'm going to do, like listen to a podcast, or, I don't know, take a nice shower or use some scented soap or
Yeah, yeah.
something. So maybe having a better plan to help me deal with this, since I know it keeps coming up, would be beneficial.
Yeah, so,
And
some
that
kind
night
of
before the race,
de-stressing personal care routine. Maybe just
yeah,
yeah, it's a good idea.
that sleep is so important, right? Like the sleep on those last 2 nights. So yeah, I think especially when you're, yeah, it's really important to get a good sleep
Hmm.
and hard.
Nice. Is there anything you think it gives you a mental edge over your competition?
I think that in ultra cycling, we bring our whole background into this
Mm.
sport. And my background is rugby, roller derby, long distance bike touring, and I take lessons I've learned from those activities into ultra. And there was a lot of growth and resiliency built into all three of those sports, and a lot of that transfers over. The other thing that transfers over, I think, is knowing how to, do a I guess fitness routine, or how to take care of the rest of your
Hmm.
body. And I've been working on that with the physio, obviously. But when I played roller derby, I had to go to the gym
Yeah.
because otherwise I would just be beat up. And I feel like the same way in ultra cycling, I need to go to the gym and work on other things and stretching to be good on the bike. So, um, yeah. But I think you know yeah, I gained a lot from all three of those activities. From roller derby, I think it was a lot of it's kind of maybe a lesson of like digging in and just like really committing to what you're doing. And it's a super time consuming sport. There's a lot to it, and I kind of take that to that frame of mind. When I'm actually in the thick of an
Hmm.
ultra and just trying to really commit to this thing that's I've wanted and I've worked so hard to get to. And from bike touring, I think it's a comfort and familiarity on the road. And like I said, I experience my pre-race anxiety, but when I'm in the race itself, I usually feel pretty good about things. And I think a lot of that does come from spending months on the road on previous bike tours, and it just kind of being my happy
Hmm.
place and being quite comfortable. And um, I think some riders don't feel as comfortable sleeping outside and don't feel maybe as comfortable wearing the same gross clothes every day. And for the most part, those things are fine for me. I get pretty cranky if I'm like cold and wet, but otherwise I just seem to, yeah, just be a stinky bike hobo sleeping in ditches and quite content with it. So yeah, but I guess I would encourage people to think about whatever your background is and what you
Hmm.
can take bike packing or bike pack racing, because there's so many transferable lessons from our lives, and we're all unique. And I think that you can try and use that to your advantage, or to have a happier, healthier experience.
Makes sense. Yeah. Um, moving on with the upcoming Silk Road Mountain Race. How does it differ in terms of like what your expectations are and with regards to, I guess, preparation and psychologically getting ready for it as well?
I think of Silk Road a bit more like the Divide. It's kind of one of these really epic routes. I think it's more important on my race calendar than the other two. And it's more, I mean, it was quite remote in areas of Greece and in Atlas, but I think Kyrgyzstan is going to be much more remote, and much more remote than the Tour Divide. So I guess that's where my kind of frame of reference fails. The route's 2,000 kilometers ish, maybe a bit shorter, and I can't remember the elevation, but it's gentler than the Hellenic. But there are big
Mhm.
passes, and a lot of it's over 3,000 meters, which is unfamiliar to me. So to kind of prepare for that, I've been using the sauna. I think it makes more like white blood cells or something,
Okay.
and I'm arriving 2 weeks early to do some touring and get comfortable at elevation. I think getting comfortable, sleeping in my bivvy and being in these remote places by myself will be really useful come race day. And also just give me a chance to, appreciate the landscapes at a, yeah, more reasonable pace. Um, One of the things that I still need to do is just some mechanical, like, bike mechanic freshen up
Hmm.
things. Uh, People have trouble with their tires, so paying some attention there. I haven't had like tire fiascos before, but I've also like never had to stitch a sidewall, so that's something I'm
Right.
definitely going to practice in the next weeks, so that I can feel more confident and know that I can do that and take care of it. Um, yeah, so some freshening up, and I think today I'm actually writing down my kit list and sending it to my coach to review. That's my
Okay.
yeah, it's my job today, to make sure that I have everything written down and I can start tracking down any items that I don't have yet. So thinking ahead, the race starts on August 16th, but I fly out at the end of July, so I need to have everything figured out before I go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Um,
What how
yeah,
are you
yeah.
gonna carry like
It's
I guess you carry a kind of a bunch of spare tubes and stuff just in case, right? There's no resupplies, so you got to have everything you might need. Pack your fears, I guess, to some degree.
for sure. I usually pack two spare tubes, and I think I'll pack three. And and I think the tricky thing is I have like deeper wheels, so a standard tube, the valve stem doesn't work on that, right? So I need
Hmm.
a valve extender. And if you I feel like it's hard to find any specific parts or anything in Kyrgyzstan. So I think, you could probably find um, bike tubes, but they might not be the ones that I need or have the removable valve that I can put an extender in. And yeah, one of my questions right now that I'm trying to figure out is I'm supported by Renee Hurst and really loving the tires. And I have the ultralight TPU tubes or tubes for like backup, right?
Right.
And those things are I really like them. Um, but I also kind of worry, like, what if I have to put tubes in? I start having issues. I'm not as familiar using them. Like, I carry them because they're light,
Yeah.
but I've only put one in like once on my road bike. And, I was doing a 2-day trip and I took it out and, turned my bike back tubeless pretty quickly after.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I kind of feel like just because I don't have enough experience using them, I should go back to plain old rubber tubes because I've fixed a lot of flats on those with success. But on the other hand, I'm like, oh, the TPU ones are so much lighter, and
Yeah.
they say that they're more like proof. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'll bring like two rubber tubes and one TPU tube to save weight or something. Just little things like that that have to think
Yeah. Yeah.
through and like I'm touring before the race for like 2 weeks. So like what if I get a flat then? I don't want to sacrifice one of my
You might want a
tubes. So
couple
maybe I should
extras
bring
just for that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
hard to
those
say.
types of
Yeah.
things.
I know here's a really cool hack I learned from Carl. Um use those vacuum sealers? Vacuum seal your tubes because A, it squashes them way down, but B, if
Yeah.
it rubs through well in your bag, you'll know because it'll no longer be vacuum sealed. Because
Oh, cool.
yeah. So I vacuum seal everything now. Like it's such a good idea. My wife's always like,
I
"Oh,
love
you're
it.
wasting it." I'm like, "This is the absolute least wasteful thing."
I mean, it's not the intended
Yeah, yeah,
use, but
but it
it's not
works well.
wasteful.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a really cool hack I learned from him because he was like, "Yeah, if it's rubbing and rubbing, and if you go to use it and it's not vacuum sealed, potentially there could be a hole."
Mhm.
And yeah, those TPU tubes, while they're being awesome and stuff, they're really hard to find a hole in them because they don't stretch the same level way a butyl one does, and so they're kind
Mhm.
of a little more challenging to fix with this very specific fixing kit as well. So I don't blame you. I think I would I would probably want to carry at least one standard old school tube with extra patches, but I don't know where I am in my line of questioning, but yeah, I guess just a last thing about racing abroad and stuff. You've done lots of racing nationally and bike touring. Like I say nationally, let's say North America or Canada, USA. Um, how do you find like racing in these different cultures and countries? How does it influence like your mindset and connection and whatnot to the sport?
That's a great question. I haven't traveled outside of like North America and Western Europe for a pretty long time. So I was a little bit nervous like going into Morocco.
Hmm.
Um so much Greece, but a little bit Morocco and people gave me such like mixed opinions of what it was going to be like there, both people who've traveled there and who hadn't traveled
Right.
there. So it's like everybody wants to give you advice, and sometimes you just have to tune it out because it's not what I want to hear right now, and it's maybe not even correct. Um, so yeah, so I had a bit of a bit of nervousness. I think that's why it's been nice to arrive early and do some touring and kind of get comfortable in a place on my own
Hmm.
terms without feeling so rushed. On the other hand, I do think if you're just kind of thrown into a different culture, a bikepacking race, because there's other people around, it's maybe a little bit less scary because there's other people around. Like you're on a route, people are gonna bump into you. If you have an incident, someone might be around or whatever, right? So I think that can give people confidence as well. The level of competition in, let's say, European organized events is much higher than in North
Mhm.
American events. I think it maybe speaks to there being just more cyclists to draw from, and there's fewer North American racers in these events, but there's been a few, Eric House and Hannah Simon, and there's been other races from Canada and the US, but there's fewer because you have to make like such a big trek over. Um, it's been a cool way to visit another place, but I feel like I've had more cultural experiences touring than racing, and in
Mm,
racing I'm pretty focused on the race. I'm not really not there as much for those kind of cultural connections because I'm focused on moving forward. So I
yeah.
can't really have a proper conversation with anybody. Versus when I was touring, like I think we talked about in the podcast about Morocco, like, I had tea with people. I went in their houses for dinner. Like I had long conversations with folks outside of
Yeah.
stores and
Yeah.
talked to teenagers and took selfies. So those kind of real human interactions I've found more bike touring, and I'm grateful that I've built that into the race experience. Like on the other hand, when you're racing and you're doing something really challenging and your emotions are kind of like high, even the smallest acts of kindness can really mean a lot to you because you're just kind of you're at this very like sensitive time where things mean, yeah, things are heightened, things mean more. But yeah, it's been cool getting to go to other places to race. I don't think you need to travel across the world to do a bikepacking race. There's tons of cool stuff in Canada or south of the border. But this is, I guess, a big year for me, turning 40, and kind of a pretty exciting time in, I guess, my career as a bike pack racer to be able to compete in these three very competitive events is exciting.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I guess you're doing. I like the way you're doing it. You showed up to Morocco a little early, and then you stayed later, and you had a chance to ride a bit of the area and get a sense for things, but also, like you said, slow it down, enjoy the people, make those connections that you're not really getting during a race. Did you do similar in Greece? Did you show up early or stay longer after?
Yeah, I arrived a week early, and I toured to the start after a night in Athens. I stored my bike box with Jimmy from Vicious Cycles, and he had raced Hellenic twice before, but hadn't made it to the finish line. And he was racing again this year, and he actually did finish, and it was really cool to get to meet him
Mm,
um, before, and then come by after and have a coffee with them and talk about our experiences and put my bike back together in his shop, or take my bike apart and put it back in the box in his shop. And uh, and I, yeah, I felt really happy with how that panned out. Touring to the start was a nice experience as well. And then after the race finished, I hung out in Nafpaktos for the finishers party, and I toured back to Athens along one of the Eurovelo routes.
mm.
And I spent like maybe 5 days in this small beach town called Saliniticas, and it's just this cute little like beach resort town. Dog's barking. I'm
No
sorry.
worries.
Okay. It's this cute little beach resort town with not a lot of international tourism. It's more Greek tourism, and the beach itself is quite narrow, so it's not one of those like white sand beaches you see on some of the islands. My accommodation was 30 euros a night, so I just stayed there for 5 days and caught up on some writing projects. As soon as you leave the beach, it's like straight up into the mountains. And my legs felt fresh enough that I could do some really fun day rides. But it's like for 50 kilometers, you're going to do 1,000 meters of elevation. So it was pretty slow riding, but just beautiful farm roads. There's some cool monasteries I visited, mix of pavement and gravel. I would definitely go back to that area and
Mm,
do like a little training camp slash writing retreat because there was quite a bit of more reasonably priced accommodation. And there's these cafes and restaurants right on the beach. The town had everything you need, a grocery store, a few bakeries, gyros and fries and pizza, and you could like set up shop in one of the beachfront cafes and get a cappuccino and then go swimming and then sit down again and work on your laptop and get a beer, and it was just like super super cool. So that was kind of how I bookended my trip in Greece.
Nice.
My parents were traveling in the Balkans as well, and they actually wrapped up their trip in Athens. So we met there for a couple of days when I was flying out, and I got to go to the Parthenon with them and crash in their hotel room.
Perfect. What was the name of this town again? Just search it out.
Yeah, Seleniticas. I will have to tell you how to spell it, but
I found it.
it
Nope, I
wasn't too
didn't.
far. Oh. Yeah, it wasn't too far from Nefpaktos. There's a big bridge to kind of cross the Gulf, and then it was maybe like 15 kilometers from there.
Okay.
Um, so it was, yeah, and I'm sure there's other places
Oh, I'm sure.
similar,
Yeah.
like little beach with, and all along that coast, it's just like mountains. Not maybe I didn't go super deep in them. Like I said, I was kind of recovering
Hmm.
still, but like yeah, you get a lot of elevation really quick, and to get on these quiet roads, whether they're paved or gravel, there's not a lot of traffic. So it was pretty cool to get away from. I mean, the beach was pretty low key too. I think I was on shoulder season right before the
Perfect.
kind of main tourism starts when kids get out for school. So it was just a pretty relaxed place to be.
Um, did you learn anything in this race that you kind of, you know, that you haven't learned in other races? I guess being that it was such a climbing race, a mountain bike style race, or anything like that. Any big takeaways?
I thought I had my gearing dialed in, and I ended up walking a lot of the top of the pitches because I was just so fatigued by the time I got to them.
Ah.
And I had a 30 in the front and like an 11 by 52 in the back, so I had a lot of gears. But when you add bike packing gear and fatigue, I just didn't have the power to get up the climbs. So I've been working on a bit more high intensity stuff to try and increase like my power numbers so that I can get to the top of the climbs without walking. And I don't mind walking. I kept joking that like it's a good thing I like hiking because there's so much of it. But I think that there's room for me to grow there, and if I can increase um, my power or my ability to ride at threshold for longer, that would be advantageous.
Mm.
And because it's an ultra, you don't really want to be riding at threshold. um, so in some ways, maybe I preserve myself by walking more, but I do think there's room for improvement there. I
Mm.
could get stronger. Um, and then I, I mean, I guess I definitely felt more comfortable on the flat bars because I was riding them so much. So just maneuvering the bike, I felt more confident out there. Um, but yeah, yeah, I think most of it was the realization about my power.
Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who was thinking about doing their first, adventure, I mean, ultra race or endurance event?
Make a plan about how you're going to prepare for it. And this is something my coach has really helped me with, and something I think I did really well for my first ultra, the Trans Am, because racing across the U.S. for a first event is kind of a ridiculous undertaking, and I knew that I couldn't wing it. So I really thought about how I would train and how I would prepare. And I had a pretty slack job at the time, so I spent a lot of time Googling at work, which was
Mm.
great. Um, but I achieved success in that event, and I didn't necessarily prepare the best way possible, but I prepared the best way I knew how, which maybe gave me some confidence. So, for instance, I was living in Saskatoon, and I trained mostly in spin studios in like 50-minute bursts for like a race across the country. Like, I don't know if that's not how I would prepare now. I would still do like interval sessions, but when your workout time maxes out at 50 minutes, that's kind of limiting, right?
Mhm.
But I think it did actually prepare me quite well. And when it warmed up, I did some longer brevet rides. Um, so yeah, like just spend some time thinking about how you're going to prepare your body and your mind, and whatever you're nervous about or anxious about, that's probably something you should focus on and figure out how to deal with, like my pre-race
Right.
night before the big day jitters. And then you just kind of have to trust yourself that, if you put the effort in, that you're going to get to the start line, um, in a good place, and then you have to let go and just, yeah, jump off that cliff and fly. See where your wings will take you. So that's my advice. Do the best
Yeah.
you can to prepare.
And
There's a lot of resources available. There's a lot of people you can talk to, podcasts to listen to, and then just trust yourself.
yeah, and I think also like one really important thing is not getting caught up in the humdrum of the start of a race, because I think I find myself too. I start going way faster, way harder than I should because everybody's going hard, and then if you're not careful, you can just kill yourself, like burn yourself out or whatever.
Completely
You've never
agree.
done that, right?
Nobody paces. Well, maybe there's a few people who do pace appropriately, but like you can't rely on the people around you for
Yeah.
pacing. 90% of people don't know how to pace a multi-day event, and it's very difficult to do that. And also, some people, they just want to go hard that first day. It's like just fun for them, and they're happy to go hard and then slow down, the next day, or go really hard the first day and then sleep for 6 hours.
Hmm.
So my strategy is to go a little less hard and sleep a little less and try to get to the finish line faster. And that's just what works for me.
Yeah.
Might work out for other people. But, in this most recent edition of the BC Epic 1000, the two racers that were in the lead both DNF'd.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you definitely can't trust you can't trust other people's
Yeah.
paces to gauge your own. Yeah, I think one of them made that night ferry, which is pretty unusual, and the other one was aiming to make the night ferry, and yeah, they both DNF'd, and other people who took the morning ferry finished ahead of them,
There you
so
go.
or finished. So
Yeah. Finish period. Where can people follow your journey or learn more about your adventures?
I exist on the internet as well as
Me
in real
too.
life, and also in paperback and audiobook format. But I'm on Instagram. I'm Meaghan Hackinen, and my website's Meaghan Hackinen. And I've done some pretty cool YouTube recaps with Redshift. So you can find those on Redshift's YouTube channel, but we're doing one for each of the events. That's been really cool. And I have a couple of books. One about my journey into adventure cycling down the Pacific Coast, and that's called South Away, the Pacific
This
Coast on
way.
Two Wheels. And
It's up there. It's
yay!
right there. It's kind of, oh,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome. That's so cool to see. It's got a good spot on the library wall. Yeah, my second book is about doing the Trans Am bike race, which was my first ultra. So they're both kind of experiences of doing something new and making mistakes and finding one's path. And yeah, I would recommend that you read them.
There you go. I would too. I've read them. They're good. Um, Anything else you'd like to share we haven't touched on?
No, I think we talked about a lot of things, and thanks for asking such interesting
Oh,
questions.
pleasure.
It's always fun to catch up with you.
Yeah, it says I don't even know. I If you could also listen to this podcast if you want to find out more about Megan, because I think she's been on like 6 times. Carl was insulted. He's like, "Oh, I have to do more unpacking, bike packing episodes with you so I can catch up." It's like,
You could do one with me and
hey,
Carl.
that would be fun. We should plan that.
Yeah.
Megan, thanks so much for being on the podcast, and we will chat again soon. I guess after the Silk Road for sure, right?
I look forward to it. Sure I'm gonna have a lot of a lot to say after that. So stay tuned.
Perfect. Awesome. Talk soon. You don't have to hang up, but I will end the recordings.